Welcome to the Range Podcast. I'm Ricky Brule, and with me is Jake Hollywood Iverson. Join us at the Archery range, where we'll tell stories from the hunt, discuss technical bow shooting tactics and gear, and pick the brains of some of the most successful people to ever shoot a bow. Whether you're about to shoot that X for the win or send an arrow at a trophy buck, this podcast is for you. The Range Podcast is brought to you by Vapor Trail Archery, makers of the best bowstrings money can buy, originators of limb-driven arrow rest technology, and innovators of Stokerized stabilizer systems. Welcome to The Range, everybody. I'm your host, Ricky Brule. Thank you for joining us here on the Range Podcast. If you're listening, make sure you give us a rating and a review. Only 5 stars will do. And of course, you can watch the video version of this episode on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. So make sure you head on over there, give us a like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. Today, I've got a guest that I probably should have had on long before I've had him on up to this point. He has been very gracious to publish every episode of our podcast up to this point. This is going to be episode 102. Mr. Dan Johnson from the Nine Finger Chronicles. Thanks for joining us today, man. How you doing?
Dude, I'm we talked about a little earlier. I woke up in a really good mood today.
I bet.
Yeah, I'm fired up for some reason, and I don't know why. Maybe it's the coffee. Maybe I don't know. I just don't know. Sun is shining. It's not raining. I'm in a good mood, dude.
That's good. I'm glad, because we recorded an episode for the Nine Finger Chronicles prior to this, and you've really helped inspire me to do some new things on our podcast. And if people want to know, or if they want to figure out what that is, you're just gonna have to go. You're gonna have to go listen to the episode that we just recorded in the Nine Finger Chronicles. You're gonna get a good laugh.
Yep.
That was a fun exercise, and like I said, it's really inspired me to do some new things, some new and fun stuff. So I appreciate that for sure.
Yeah, you can't live outside of the box if you never step outside of the box.
Right. Like, I got stumped at one point. I'm just like, I don't even know where this story is going. This sounds so dumb. So Dan finished it for me.
Listen, I don't know why people listen to me on my podcast. Honestly, I don't know. But so I'm thinking it's less deer hunting, maybe a little bit more of an entertainment, like this is literally a normal dude who's podcasting. Okay. Yeah. So I have kind of built my career on literally being myself. And so there are times when I will listen to a story or I'll have an expert on where I kind of want to just go off the rails for a little bit, but I know it's probably not the most professional things to do. So like for me on my podcast, I have a very hard time balancing like jokes and seriousness. It's difficult for me, even in my real life situations.
Yeah. And so I heard that clip you put up with you and Tony Peterson and how he was talking about, you were saying you were going to edit that section out, so I'm excited to kind of listen to that episode for that one little snippet, but still even like just to hear Tony and hear the conversation that you guys had. But
yeah,
that was a pretty wild way to start my morning. Definitely not how I was expecting things to go. And again, to your point, right? Like getting the creative juices flowing, right?
Absolutely.
And for the record, everybody, I must say that I didn't know this about Dan Johnson until this morning, but he's a fantastic storyteller. I mean, just coming up with this stuff off the cuff, I was like, wow. And not to discredit you in any way, shape, or form, but I just was like, man, this is very detailed. It's very well put together. So that was impressive.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, when they actually go and listen to the story, they're going to be completely upset. Like, it's the dumbest story ever. It's just, it's all made up. None of it's true. It's all hypothetical. And I can't wait for people to, just be like, boy, this is bizarre.
Yeah. But in any case, this is the Range Podcast. So we're going to talk a little bit about your archery origin story. These are the kinds of things that we like to know around here. The conversations are based on the types of conversations that you would have with other people, like-minded people
Mm-hmm.
at the archery range. So that's where a lot of these questions are based. But yeah, if you could just kind of fill our audience in a little bit on kind of your origin story when it came to like hunting, and then what led you into picking up a bow and starting to hunt with a bow.
Yeah, this is crazy. Like, I haven't told this story in a very long time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's awesome to kind of come back to it, and then
Yeah.
maybe at some point compare it to how I told it 10 years ago,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But my origin story I'll kind of go into the outdoors first, because I was never a hunter. Like, I didn't grow up in a hunting family. My uncles did some hunting, mostly trapping and pheasant hunting, a little turkey hunting, and I got a little bit of a glimpse inside that through them.
Mm-hmm.
But when it came to the outdoors, I was just like, I grew up on a farm. Like, my grandparents were farmers. They were also my babysitters. So when my mom and dad went to work, they dropped me off at the farm. They took my shoes and socks off and said, get outside. Right. And so
Nice.
I was outside all the time with my brother. I was in the back of tractors. I was, like getting hot boxed by my chain smoking grandpa in the cab of a tractor for like years.
Oh
For
man,
years, right?
we definitely grew up in the same time.
So
Pretty sure I was
so
hot boxed a few times myself.
exactly. And so, funny story. One year, my grandpa had so many cigarette points from Salem cigarettes that our Christmas presents were all Salem cigarette branded, like beach towels and like coffee cups. Like, who gets an 8-year-old kid a coffee cup of Salem cigarettes
That's
for their
great.
birthday? So he cashed in all his points, and we got a whole bunch of Salem cigarette stuff.
That's awesome.
For Christmas one year. But no, outside kid, right? And so one of the earliest memories I had was my grandma put my brother down for a nap, and then so they left him at the farmhouse. My grandpa's out farming, and my uncle came and set a whole bunch of traps. Then he went back for football, and so me and my grandma went out and had to check my uncle's traps. And I was the kid
Oh.
with the baseball bat. So if there's any muskrats, coons, possums in a trap that were still alive, I handled it. Right? I took care of it. Now, for those of you who don't know, possums and raccoons are extremely vigilant animals. They don't want to die. And
Yeah.
as a 8-year-old trying to beat a raccoon to death with a baseball bat while it's in a trap, it's very gruesome, and you get kind of this little awakening. And so, like, farm kids, obviously, they get to see life and death in a different way than someone who doesn't get to see that. So, fishing, a lot of fishing when I was
Yeah.
a kid, some trapping, and then really it wasn't until I was 12 or 13, maybe 14 years old, I got my first bow. I kind of wanted to, I think a lot of it had to do with like some of the magazines that were out, like
Yeah.
North American Whitetail. I like to look at the deer on the covers of those. Field and Stream, Outdoor Life. We always had those coming into the house, and I said I want to shoot a bow. So my parents got me a bow. My very first ever bow was like this green fiberglass traditional bow.
Yeah.
Made out of fiberglass. And we would go to this bow shop, and one of the old timers that always hung out this bow shop, he took a bucket lid and he'd turn the bucket upside down. He'd sit on it, and I would sit there with an arrow, and he would roll the bucket lid probably about 20 yards in front of me. And my job was to do a quick draw and try to shoot it.
Nice.
Right. And so I'd never hit that. I was late on everything, shooting like 4 feet behind it. And this old timer is trying to tell me how to do it.
Yeah.
My first ever real compound bow was bought at a garage sale with a handful of arrows that did not match at all. Right. And so I got a bale of hay from my grandpa. We brought it down to where I live, like 2 hours away in southern Iowa. And we put it in the backyard. And I I can remember shooting maybe 7 arrows. 3 of them hit the target or something like that. Hit the bale of hay, and I go, I'm ready. Like, dude, these deer don't stand a chance.
I love it.
Like with me, so I'm batting like 25% here, and I'm thinking I'm ready for the woods, right? And so, one of the very first hunts I believe I ever did was my mom drove me out into the country. Because back in the early 90s, man, it was just a different time in Iowa. There were big deer there, but I don't think a lot of people were coming to Iowa to hunt, right? And so I had a bucket, I had my bow, I had my arrows, no quiver, right? Just all set up with the old school sights that you had to adjust every single sight by itself, every pin by itself. I was on one of those old school plastic tip rests that was kind of screwed into the bow. Nothing drop away, no whisker biscuit. You just set the aluminum right on it, and as you drew it back, if that plastic was cracked or gone, it was just like during the draw cycle,
Oh yeah.
And so I can remember my mom just parked off the road on this old blacktop. I hopped a fence, didn't talk to the farmer at all, just hopped a fence, walked into the woods, and sat on a bucket. I could see the reflection of the sun off my mom's windshield. That's how close I was to this. And I think I saw maybe one doe at about like 500 yards or something like that. And that was like my first experience going hunting, but like by myself, probably 12, 13 years old.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I remember the first when I really got serious into it when I was in college, and I remember that season it was particularly rainy. So I just remember spending so many days just sitting in the rain. Yeah. And it just still to this day blows my mind that we do this to ourselves, right?
Right.
What is it?
Right.
What is it about this that makes us put us through all the suffering and being miserable, but the reward is just, you can't explain it, right? So that's cool, man. That's a good story. I like that.
Yeah.
So what was that? What was that? Those fiberglass bows, what were they, like Jennings or something like that?
Dude, I have no idea what the brand.
Jet.
There was no brand on this bow. There was no name on the bow. It was just a black handle, a black string on a like a neon green fiberglass bow. But it looked like it had been setting out in the sun for years.
Yeah.
So the color was extremely dull.
Yeah.
And so that was the bow that we would just mess around with. But my first bow, I believe it was a bear.
Okay.
A bear or a Browning. Something tells me it could have been a Browning bow. But I don't know if they made a bow back then. But it was even an old bow for its time.
Yeah.
Right. So it was like probably one of the first compound bows that I don't know, in the 80s that were made. So,
yeah. When you talk about that fiberglass one too, I immediately think of it was a Ben Pearson Jet is what they call them. And when they're not strung, they're pretty much straight. But in any case, let's talk about your current setup now. What I know for the most part, I think what you're shooting, but let's enlighten our audience here. Let them know. Let's talk about the bow manufacturer and just break it down. Sight, rests, strings, arrows, broadhead, you name it.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to preface this by saying one of the biggest contributing factors to what bows I am looking at now is 100% axle to axle and brace height. Those are my the two things that if it's under 6 inches, I just can't get on board with it. And if it's under now, like every year, I that axle to axle gets bigger for me. And so, I like a 34. I like a 33. I like a 32, but I'm not ever going to go back under 30 to 31 or under for unless some type of crazy technology changes that.
Right.
And so the last couple years, I think I'm shooting a Bowtech solution.
Yeah.
And it has the bigger axle to axle. It has the a fairly decent brace height. It's not the super smooth, so it's not the it doesn't have the bigger brace height, but it's very comfortable. I love the draw cycle. Draw cycle for me is huge.
Right.
In the past, this is going to sound crazy. In the past, I've never been a fan of like draw cycles like PSE because typically they're a hard strung speed bow.
Yeah.
I've never been a fan of Matthews draw cycles for some reason.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that I don't know about you if you've noticed some of these bows. Like for me, I felt like Matthews in the past 3 years has really changed how their draw cycle feels on me. PSE definitely has changed how they've started doing, their bow building and stuff like that. So it's like those two bows are the first thing that come to my mind. And so, but I always kind of, I don't feel like I'm brand loyal, but I always have kind of, it started with me when I bought my first compound, my Bowtech Tribute back in 2005, I believe it was.
Yeah.
That was the first bow I ever bought with my own money, and set up with my own money, and it was a badass bow.
Yeah.
Imagine shooting a bow from the 80s and then in 2006, then buying your own bow. It is night and day difference. It's just crazy.
Yeah, I went from a PSE Polaris to an Allegiance in that same year that you got your Tribute. So I mean, it's a world of difference. It's insane. Exactly.
And so axle to axle kind of plays a role. Brace height definitely plays a role. Draw cycle, like I got to feel. It's all about feel for me. And I feel better with a longer axle to axle and bigger brace height.
Yeah.
Just my type of deal. And then in the past, and I hate to say it, right? I hate to say it, but like, dude, my favorite rest was Keith and that company over at Ripcord. Man, I liked the way Keith handled business.
Yeah.
That Ripcord Arrow Rest was a badass, man. Beat the shit out of it and no problems. Drag it through dirt, water, freezing, and that thing held steady right there. Didn't have to do much to it. Right? For like drop away rest, badass.
Yeah.
It's like this is hard for me to say because I know people, but like that company sold, and now the brand is different. Like maybe the design is the same, but I've had issues kind of with it, and I think I had 13 years of that on my bow, a ripcord. Same, like there was a period of time where I think it was the same rest for 7 years before I dropped my bow and broke it. And then I just got another one and replaced it. Same old model, everything. Because I'm a huge fan of what works, right? And so once that company sold and the products kind of became different, I changed to a Vapor Trail.
Yeah.
And I had never been a limb-driven guy. Mine was always cable-driven. I started reading a little bit about and watching like slow-mo videos of cable-driven drop-aways versus limb-driven drop-aways. And I kind of liked the benefit that the limb-driven was giving me. So right now I have a Vapor Trail.
Yeah.
Vapor Trail limb-driven rest on my bow. And dude, love it.
Yeah.
No issues with it. I like a simple is better type of concept. There's like, you put it on your bow, you make your minimal adjustments and you're good, man.
Yeah.
Do some, maybe do some paper tuning, whatever. And, there's that.
That's awesome.
So,
we appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely.
To talk a little bit about, when you were talking about ripcord.
Yeah.
Yeah, Keith so much about everything, and with me too, with what I shoot outside of our company too, is relationships. Obviously the product has to perform well still, but
Yeah.
relationships really play a big role in that. And then, so Keith, I would see him every year at the NABA show out in Reno.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times, there was one year he was literally right across the aisle from us, and technically we're competitors, but Keith he's just a great dude, and he was
Mm-hmm.
always, he would always tell people, if somebody was like, "Oh, well, how come you don't do anything limb driven?" And he would be like, "Well, that's because those guys over there do the limb driven." So then he would
Mm-hmm.
literally send people over our way,
Yeah.
and he would say, "Hey, Ripcore's got the best cable driven, Vapor Trail's got the best limb driven."
Yeah.
And eventually they did do their own version of limb driven, which is, again, that's what I love about the industry. Has changed a little bit now. There's a lot of cutthroat stuff going on, where it
Yeah.
used to really be just, we're all may the best man win mentality, where
Yeah.
now it's kind of just, a lot of it is, how much money can you dump in and advertise and this and that. And I mean, I don't know, we don't need to go down that rabbit hole, but
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
really cool. And then I also wanted to point out too, because you were talking about PSE and Matthews and their draw cycles. And yeah, I guess the way I see it, and you're absolutely right, I agree. Like, I remember the PSE Omen, super fast bow, but just aggressive draw cycle. Like, I
Yeah.
hated tuning those bows, because especially if it was a lefty, if I had a customer bring a lefty in, it was like, I'm like, oh my gosh, can't even draw this thing back.
Yeah.
And then but now with their new cam system, they've kind of gone the other direction. I shot a PSC. I shot the Mach 34 a couple years back. It's a great bow.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like Matthews has gone the other way. Their draw cycle is like really hard now. And I don't know if you
Yeah.
agree or if that's where you were going with that. But I just feel like the draw cycle is a lot harder on the Matthews than, because I'm shooting prime right now, and it's a
Yeah.
lot smoother for me.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure. Maybe a little bit of it had to do with some of the bows I was shooting, having the gigantic cams with the huge dump at the end,
mm-hmm.
where, like, I don't want to say I'm a strong guy, but I do work out, take that how you want it. And so when I want a subtle valley,
Mm-hmm.
because what happens is I'm putting a lot of energy into that, and then I hit the valley, and it feels like I'm going boom,
Yeah.
and I'm like trying to rip. I'm ripping the string off of the limbs,
Yeah.
right? And so I like a little bit of a tug back
Mm-hmm.
on me, especially when I'm at full draw, but I don't necessarily need it feels like nothing at full draw.
Right. Right.
Right? I don't know. So
Yeah.
anyway, I do want to say one thing about the old Ripcord and Keith and that company is, whenever I had a problem, and this is what I respect about some of the brands that I work with, like one of them is Wasp, Archery, just like solid people, right? And so on some of these companies, you call, like for example, you call their number, and guess who was answering? Keith was.
Yeah.
And you got a problem, one of the owners is handling the business over the phone with you.
Yeah.
And that just doesn't happen anymore.
No.
So
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But yeah, great dude. I was sad to
yeah.
see him go, and especially one of those deals where, blood, sweat, and tears for, many, many years, well over a decade for sure. I don't know exactly how long he was with them, but it's one of those things that was sad to see. And the same thing with Tight Spot Quivers and Joe Jacks, and,
Yep.
but they're talented guys. They know their stuff. So it's like, there's no doubt in your mind that they're going to move on and find success somewhere else. But it's just
Yeah.
unfortunate, Keith, that's who he was. He was the ripcord guy,
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
so yeah, great dude. So let's talk a little bit about your arrow setup. I know you and I have talked about this a little bit on the Hunting Gear podcast. You tend to like a little bit of a heavier setup. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Like, there's something about knowing that if you have a shit shot on a deer, it don't matter, right?
Yeah.
You're getting penetration, even with a mechanical where there's a loss of energy, and you're knowing that your broadhead is going to do its job, the arrow is going to push it through, and it's going to cause a ton of damage. Like, that's what I want. So, like, for me, I'm not an FOC guy. I don't give a shit about FOC. I am a total arrow weight guy. And so I feel like if I have a 30-pound or a 70-pound draw at 30 inches, all right? So with those two statistics, or those two numbers alone, I can shoot a crowbar, basically, with a broadhead on it.
Yeah.
And so I want to shoot a heavy arrow that gets a ton of penetration at 20 yards. It's butter through the biggest, oldest, mature buck that there is. And so I don't care if there's a little arch in my archery. There's some guys who want the flattest flying trajectory that there is. I don't mind a lob shot at 50, 60 yards.
Yeah.
Like seeing that the flight of the arrow, right? And so I'm okay with that. So I shoot a day 6 arrow with a 100 and I think it's still no, it's a 125 grain Wasp 3-blade jackhammer.
Okay.
I don't know why I'm having a problem with this. I think it's the 125 grain. It could be 120 grain. I think it's 125. 3-blade jackhammer. I've been shooting that head since almost 2006. I stepped away from that broadhead like 2 or 3 years for one reason only, is because the company I was working with, White Knuckle Production, had a business deal with NAP Archery. And
okay.
The Spitfire, remember that broadhead. As soon as that was over, I was back to jackhammers and Wasp. And so, 3-blade mechanical, love the ferrule, love that. Then I have the day 6 arrow with the outsert up on the front end, which adds a little weight to the front end. I don't know what that does to the FOC because, again, I don't give a shit about FOC. And then I think my arrow, I'm trying to remember my arrow length, maybe 32 inches, something like that. Does that seem huge?
That seems, well, that's probably, with a 30-inch draw, it's probably pretty close, yeah.
Yeah, right around 32. And then 4 fletch on the back end with a day 6 fletchings and day 6 notch.
Nice.
So
cool.
Yep.
I want to go back just a little bit too, because we've picked up a lot of new listeners here in the last couple of weeks, and so I don't know, how many of them are new to this, but to go kind of back to what you were talking about, having a longer axle to axle on your bow and a longer brace height, that what that will do is it gives you more forgiveness in the bow. So if you're going to have a shorter brace height, which is basically the distance from the back of the grip to where the string is, basically your arrow is on the string longer during that draw cycle. And so any sort of little bit of movement or anything that you could do is going to have more profound effect on the arrow flight with a shorter brace height. So making the bow less forgiving, essentially.
Yes.
And so by having a longer brace height and a longer axle to axle, the bow is going to be a little bit easier to shoot. It's going to allow you to have maybe just a little bit more flaw in your form. Not, again, and this is in no means me trying to say you don't need to practice when you do those kinds of things. But again, in those situations where maybe you've got some high winds or a odd situation that you're not used to shooting in, it's just gonna give you more forgiveness and ensure you're basically stacking the deck more in your favor when it comes down to actually taking that shot. So just want to talk about that a little bit. And I'm with you on that too. I've never really been much of a speed bow guy. I've always liked to kind of be more in the middle. I like a longer axle to axle bow. I've got a Prime RVX 36. That's my backup bow, and then I've got my form, which is 34. I don't tend to really like to go much shorter than that. Even though like some of the new bows, they've got shorter axle to axles, but then they compensate for it by having that big cam on there. So when you're at full draw, it sort of acts like a longer axle to axle bow. But so I just want to talk about that a little bit. You said something about White Knuckle Productions. Did you know Todd?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
In 2006 when he started it, I was part of that whole thing.
Yeah, I suppose because
Right, so
he's an Iowa guy too, right?
He's a Michigan guy who moved to Iowa.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
And then I helped, like, I was there when he started, like, he did all the design work, and then I did a lot of the sales and go to the trade shows with him for Wicked Tree Gear when he created that business as well. So I was in with Todd from like 2005 to 2014, 15 time frame. Yeah.
Okay.
Helped him build White Knuckle and Whitetails Inc. on the web show. Helped him build his other company, and so I knew Todd very well.
That's cool, man. Because like he shot our products, and then we also he would get us set up with a bunch of Wicked Tree Gear too. So God rest his soul. So that was a sad deal there too. But so the next thing, I know you don't have a whole lot of time, but I just want to let's talk a little bit about like your favorite hunting story. Whatever.
Man,
whatever's good and in Dan Johnson style.
Yeah. Oh man! Before I get into that, though, I my obsessive compulsive disorder is making me want to go back to talk about my bow for a moment.
Yeah.
Because we didn't talk about sights.
Yep.
And so I used to have an old school sight where I had to adjust all the pins and all that stuff, and I didn't like it. And so when that React technology came out for
Trophy
Ridge, I jumped right on that bandwagon, and I have not left it.
Yeah.
So React is very simple, very easy to use, shortens the sighting in time. Okay, so now I said that. Now we can go to the story. Man, my thought of what an awesome hunting story is, dude, I used to be that guy who I would look at Tom Miranda, I would look at Jim Shockey, and I would be like, dude.
Yeah.
Like gigantic adventures, multi-country, multiple days to get there, multiple days to get up to where the animals are living. Like that caught my attention, right? I wanted that to happen, and I still want some of that stuff to happen. But recently, what I get more enjoyment out of, like I get a lot of enjoyment on my independent hunts. I went to South Dakota this past year, and I shot my very first mule deer. Awesome. Had a great time. But the last 2 years, between my daughter and now my son has started hunting with us, there's nothing that compares to being able to hang out with the people who you have literally made and hang out with, like my daughter. And I'll share this story. So this was not this turkey season, but the previous turkey season. My daughter, and this was her first turkey season where she was going to be the shooter. Okay, first youth season. And so day one, we get out there, turkeys go the opposite direction. My stepdad comes with me. My son comes with me. My son is hanging out with my stepdad, and they're kind of just playing backup. He'll pick up and he'll call when I stop calling, so we get the feeling of that the turkeys are heading away from the gobbling tom once we find them. And so the first morning they fly down, they gobble their heads off, they go the opposite direction. Second morning, they do the exact same thing. We're in a little bit different of an area, but they fly down and they continue to gobble as the morning kind of progresses. And I'm just like, you ready to go? Let's chase them. Let's go chase them. And my daughter's like, okay, let's go. So first we went to the west, up in this horse pasture where they were strutting, like they always kind of go. We get up there. There's two toms strutting in a field, and we were calling them, but they were henned up. And then another tom kind of blindsided us from the right in all this thickness. He saw us. He ran out into the pasture. They all followed, whatever. Okay. Behind us, they're gobbling like crazy still. So I'm like, hey, now we got to go clear on the other side of the farm. So we're looking at a half-mile walk. So we walk through this little pinch point that I have for deer hunting, and we drop down into this big valley, and now I'm starting to call. calling a little bit more, we get them located. And so they're on a ridge right in front of us, but we're low and they're up on top of the ridge. All right. So I'm trying to call them down to me, which is very hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I go, okay, well, what we're going to do is we're going to hop to the next ridge, go behind it, pop up on top, set up, and try to call them to us. So we pop up, and then they go quiet just for a little bit. And I'm a pretty aggressive caller. And so she's sitting in between my legs, and they skip our ridge that we were on, and they go to the ridge behind us now. So they walk this main high point where all these turkeys are connected, but they didn't come down to follow the noise. They went to get behind us, and they're So what do? We drop down the opposite side where they came from, go low, and then we skip that ridge that they're on. Meanwhile, they're gobbling probably like 100 yards from us. They can't see us because they're on top.
Yeah.
And then we go to the next ridge and do the same thing, backdoor it, and then come up on top, set up, and start calling. And we called, and they gobbled every single time. They responded every single time to us, every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And so then it went quiet for a while. And I kind of just laid off the call, and she's like, well, we should probably go back home. Grandma made muffins. I'm like, you can't argue with that, right?
Yeah.
Grandma's muffins are pretty good.
Uh-huh.
And so I go, hey, let's just sit here for about 10 more minutes and let's call. And so I did a very short calling sequence, and these toms went bananas, probably 80 yards on the same ridge as us now.
Oh, boy.
So they're on this ridge now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I start slowly calling again, very quietly, and they're gobbling, and they're getting closer, and they're getting closer. And we had this mowed path right in front of us. Well, I'm sure turkey hunters have figured this out. Turkeys are more of a straight line animal than, let's say, like a whitetail is. A whitetail will follow path of least resistance to get to you. They will walk the trail. They'll walk the open spots. If they're coming to you, they may. There's a little curve in their movement. Like turkeys, man, they come straight to you, straight to the sound, right? And so we're facing this opening that has this trail. I'm like, they're going to walk right in front of us. It's game over. She's got her 410 out. It's going to be like a 15-yard shot, whatever. And I'm starting to see heads bobbing now coming down this trail, and then they walk right to us. And so there is a dead tree to our right, and it's on the top's on the ground. And so now they are working their way by us to the right. They're looking right at us. We didn't move. And so they come back, and now they're going down the ridge behind us. So I'm like, wait till they disappear. So my daughter lifts her gun up. She is now going over my head with this 410. The cool part about this, Ricky, is that I didn't have to tell her what to do. This was now like she's automatically knowing what to do, which is an awesome thing as a father hunter.
Right. Yeah.
So she's making the move. She kind of pushes up against me in the tree, and she's like, call him back. I'm like, well, this isn't going to work, but I'll call. And I'm calling, and I'm calling, and I'm calling, and here they come. They turn around, and they 180, and they come right back up this little hill. And I go, can you see them? He's like, no, their head is behind a bush. And I said, well, put that red dot right on their head, and you smoke them. You pull that trigger as soon as he opens up.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, do you see him? Do you see him? Do you see him? Boom! She's not even responding to me. She's just like in the zone. Like there's just like this split second of chaos. Right? Single shot, 410.
Yeah.
I grabbed the gun out of her hand. We looked down, and flopping Tom.
Nice.
Down, like works her way down. And I am yoked. Like dad
Yeah, man.
First kill. Like I am way more excited about this than she is.
Yeah.
Right? She's like, I got a turkey. I'm like, like I was a psychopath, right?
I love that.
And so flopping, and then I'm like, okay, first time ever, we got to do the head stomp, right? The turkey stomp. You put your boot right on his head so he doesn't fly away. And we're sitting there talking and enjoying this moment, and there's like a pause in this whole thing, and it is where we stop talking, and we hear some noise to the right of us. Another flopping tom.
Oh.
So they came in. You know how sometimes these younger toms will come in like a school of fish?
Yeah.
And they'll kind of do this.
Yeah.
Well, she ended up pulling the trigger, and she put the red dot, did exactly what she did, smokes this one, but there's some casualties of war, so to speak, here. And
Yeah.
we got another flopping tom to deal with now.
Yeah.
Right? And so we ended up walking over to it, and I'm just like, oh shit, one tag, right? We only got one youth tag.
Yeah.
And so now it kind of became this deal where I'm so jacked about my daughter killing her first turkeys now, one shot, that no one really says, hey, I pulled, I got 2 turkeys in one shot. It's a cool first experience.
Yeah.
But being where I'm at in an industry, sharing my hunts, things like that, sharing the stories, I have 2 dead animals and I have 1 tag.
Yeah.
My daughter just shot. So I don't want this, like, the first thing is let's run to the store, grab another youth tag, put it in my kid's name, and tag the turkeys. We're good to go.
Yeah.
No casualty of war. Don't tell anybody about it. But I had, there's a part of me that was like, I feel like my kids are watching me, what I do right now. And so, and plus the industry that I'm make my money off of, I have to do the right thing. So I called the DNR officer, right? And we had a conversation a little bit about what to do. He was brainstorming some ideas, and he's just like, my conscience, we have to do the right thing here, right? So we put we tagged one in turkey, put the other one in the truck, and they were 2 identical turkeys, right? So one of the turkeys, the turkey she smoked and that she did, maybe a 1/4 inch longer beard. Right. And so, but the other one, exact same weight, exact same turkey. And then I called the DNR officer. He said, hey, I'm here at this hunter safety course right now. Why don't you come and drop it off, and I'll confiscate it from you. Right. And so we had to go. We didn't have a tag. We had to turn the bird in. I guess they do something where they harvest the meat from it and then give it to a less fortunate family or whatever the case is. I once it left, I really was unsure what they did with it.
Okay.
But then he goes through the process of educating them. Every animal you kill, you need to have a tag for. Every animal, especially with turkeys, next time, try your hardest to let them separate before you pull the trigger on them. So that way they, you're not doing this on accident again. We understand this was an accident. Things like this happen from time to time. The more you do this, the better you'll get at it. And he was encouraging her to continue to hunt, which was awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And so, it was a kind of a mixed emotion because I felt like I didn't get the opportunity to truly have this exciting celebration with her. We got pictures with them. We got to do the picture thing. We got to do the celebration where you cut the beard off and you cut the spurs off, and my stepdad made a little stand for her with the fan and the pictures and all that stuff, which is really cool. And but I felt like I didn't get to celebrate because I had to go into a PR mode.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Where I had to smooth things out, do the right thing because something, I don't know, it was an accident, but technically illegal. However you want to look at it, right?
Yeah.
I look at it as a learning experience, an accident that happened, and so I had to go through that. So I didn't get the pure joy that came because I had to go into kind of like crisis mode. So,
Yeah.
But those now are the stories that I want to share. Like,
Yeah.
because I don't know what it is about me per se, but like my favorite thing to do in this world is spend time with my family, period.
Yeah.
Like, I love my kids. I want to spend as much time with them as possible. And I'm started coming off this very selfish bow hunter mentality that a lot of bow hunters are and kind of have to be in order to be good at whatever it is that you want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going more into this sharing and time with kids type mode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's cool. Like, that's a great story. And like you said, what a incredible teaching moment too. And I love how that conservation officer handled the situation, because
Yeah.
you know, that's going to be one of those deals that it'll be a story she'll never forget, obviously. But then at the same time, you were able to take advantage of that opportunity and flip the script on what people think hunters are.
Yeah.
And what probably admittedly does happen a lot. And yeah, I mean, I had a situation just like you said, like I shot what I thought was a doe and it ended up being a spiked buck, and he had like an 11-inch tine on the one side, and the first thought that goes through your head is, okay, where's the nearest rock so I can bust that antler off and tag it as a doe? I mean,
Right.
but it's like, nope, I got to do the right thing. And I got, I'm proud of this, what I did, and I don't care what other people think, And so, I just think that's really cool. Good for you, and obviously you made the right move, and especially, with the kids around, you gotta, again, just showing them what it means to really be hunting and why you're out there, and it's
Absolutely.
not all about just trying to take as many animals as you can, and being ethical about everything that you're doing. So that's really cool. I love that story. I can attest to to flipping things on, the importance of hunting nowadays too. Cause even, my daughter right now, she's too young to really, I mean, she went out, I took her out turkey hunting with me this year, and she loves just sitting in the blind and hanging out and watching turkeys. And she got to witness me miss a turkey at 40. So that was pretty fun. She won't let me live that one down. She keeps making fun of me for it. And I don't think she means to, but she'll just, like, every once in a while, she'll see me practicing, because we'll go out in the backyard and practice together a little bit. And she'll be like, yeah, Dad, you got to practice so you don't miss those turkeys again. And I'm just like, oh God, dang it. But, I think that's really cool. And then even my boy, he's not really big into hunting. He's not really big into the outdoors, big time into basketball, loves all that kind of stuff. But more recently, we've just been shooting BB gun in the backyard, shooting rabbits and squirrels and stuff. And he was like, hey, can I shoot? And I was like, sure. And he proceeded to shoot 300 times. I mean, shooting at these little cans and bottles in the backyard. And now every day he's like, hey, can we shoot? Can we shoot? And then he's like watching YouTube videos, and, and so it's just like, again, to your point, like just the joy that you get when you're like,
Right.
yeah, cool. This is a path that I was really hoping you would go down,
Right.
And so that's awesome. So cool story. Thanks so much for telling us that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I guess, I think there's a lot more I want to talk to you about, but I think what we'll do is we'll maybe get you on another time and we can talk some more.
Part 2.
Yep, we'll have a part 2 for sure. And thanks so much for being here. For all the listeners, if you want to watch the video version of this episode, you can check it out on the Vapor Trail YouTube channel. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell so you can be up to date on all things archery. And if you're listening, give us a rating and a review. Only 5 stars will do. And of course, if you do get a chance, make sure you head on over, listen to the Nine Finger Chronicles. It's a great podcast. I don't know, you got to be pushing 1,000 episodes at this point.
Yeah, dude, 10 years in, I think the last time I checked, I was over 970. So I put out roughly, some weeks it's only 1, some weeks it's 2, and I think I'm guessing maybe 1,000 will be close to opening day.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's awesome. And then also you got the Hunting Gear podcast. So make sure you go check that one out from time to time. And now the newest one,
and the How to Hunt Deer podcast that I do, which is kind of like a basic one. Yep.
You got that one. And then now you get the new one with Dan Matthews.
Yeah.
What is that one called?
2 Ds, 1 podcast. And so That one, word of warning, that one is for adults. And it has, I created that podcast because there's days where I don't want to talk about deer hunting at all because that's all I talk about.
Right.
So I needed another creative outlet, and it's bananas.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I haven't had a chance yet, but I'm looking forward to getting into there. Dan's a great guy too, so I look forward to listening to that. And then of course, you've got the Sportsman's Empire Network, which is what we are a part of that family. It's been a joy to be a part of that for the last couple of years, and all the different podcasts that you have on there. So make sure you all go check that out. And once again, Dan, thanks so much for being with us today, man.
You're the man, Rick.
Appreciate you. Vapor Trail is now offering an exclusive discount to the Range Podcast listeners. Enter promo code TRP15, that's TRP15, at checkout for 15% off VTX bowstrings and Vapor Trail and Stokerized branded t-shirts, hats, and other gear.